Palestinian Authority's Prime Minister announced his government's resignation. But what does this resignation mean for the war in Gaza? Simply put, there would be formation of a new government in the West Bank area of Palestine. It is the larger of the two Palestinian territories and is home to some 3 million Palestinians. Since 1994, the Palestinian Authority has administered parts of the West Bank under its control. This resignation is seen as the first step in a reform process urged by the United States as part of its latest ambitious plans to resolve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But it will do little to address the authority's long-standing lack of legitimacy among its own people or its strained relations with Israel. Both pose major obstacles to the U.S. plans. The U.S. plan calls for the Palestinian Authority to govern post-war Gaza ahead of eventual statehood. That's assuming that the war in Gaza ends with the defeat of the Hamas militant group, which of course is an Israeli and U.S. goal, but seems elusive nearly 5 months into the grueling war that has killed almost 30,000 Palestinians and pushed the territory to the brink of a famine. Here's a look at the government shakeup and what it means for the Israel-Hamas war. First, let's understand what is the Palestinian Authority or the PA. The PA was created in the early 1990s through interim peace agreement signed between Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization or the PLO, then led by Yasser Arafat. It was granted limited autonomy in parts of the West Bank and Gaza ahead of what the Palestinians hoped would be full statehood in both territories as well as East Jerusalem. These were actually lands that Israel captured in the 1967 Mideast War. But the sides were unable to reach a final agreement through several rounds of peace talks. Mahmoud Abbas was elected president of the PA in 2005, months after Arafat's death. Hamas won a landslide victory in parliamentary elections the following year, triggering an international boycott of the PA. A power struggle between Abbas's secular Fatah party and Hamas boiled over in the summer of 2007, with Hamas seizing power in Gaza after a week of street battles. That effectively confined Abbas's authority to parts of the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Abbas recognizes Israel, is opposed to armed struggle, and is committed to a two-state solution. His security forces have cooperated with the Israeli military to crack down on Hamas and other armed groups. And his government has worked with Israel to facilitate work permits, medical travel, and other civilian affairs. Now let's understand, what does the resignation mean? In announcing his resignation, Prime Minister Mohammad Shtayyeh said new arrangements were needed to address the new reality in the Gaza Strip. Abbas accepted Shtayyeh's resignation and is expected to replace him with Mohammad Mustafa, a US-educated economist who has held senior positions at the World Bank and currently leads the Palestine Investment Fund. He was Deputy Prime Minister and Economy Minister from 2013 to 2015. As a political independent and not a Fatah loyalist like his predecessor, Mustafa's appointment would likely be welcomed by the US, Israel, and many other countries. Mustafa has no political base of his own, and the 88-year-old Abbas will still have the final say on any major policies. Still, the appointment would convey the image of a reformed professional PA that can run Gaza, which is important for the US State Department spokesman Matthew Miller said it was up to the Palestinians to choose their leaders, but that the US welcomes any step to reform and revitalize the PA. But another important question is, how do Palestinians view the authority or the PA? Abbas's popularity has plummeted in recent years, with polls consistently finding that a large majority of Palestinians want him to resign. The PA's security coordination with Israel is extremely unpopular, causing many Palestinians to view it as a subcontractor of the occupation. Both the PA and the Hamas have cracked down on dissent in the territories they control, violently suppressing protests and jailing and torturing critics. Abbas's mandate expired in 2009, but he has refused to hold elections, citing Israeli restrictions. Hamas, whose popularity has soared during this and previous rounds of violence, would likely do well in any free election. But the most popular Palestinian leader by far is Marwan Barghouti, a Fatah leader who is serving 5 life sentences in an Israeli prison after a 2004 terrorism conviction. Hamas is demanding his release in exchange for some of the hostages it captured in the October 7th attack that ignited the war. But Israel has refused. Hamas has called for all the Palestinian factions to establish an interim government to prepare the way for elections. But Israel, the U.S., and other Western countries are likely to boycott any Palestinian body that includes the militant group, which they view as a terrorist organization. Now, does Israel support the Palestinian Authority or the PA? Israel prefers the PA to Hamas. But even though they cooperate on security matters, Israel accuses the PA of inciting terrorism and the PA accuses Israel of apartheid and genocide. Israel's criticism largely focuses on the PA's provision of financial aid to the families of Palestinian prisoners and Palestinians killed by Israeli forces, including militants who killed Israelis. Israel says the payments incentivize terrorism. The PA portrays them as social welfare of victims of the occupation. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that the PA should have no role in post-war Gaza. He says Israel will maintain open-ended security control over the territory while local Palestinian leaders administer civilian affairs. Netanyahu's government is opposed to Palestinian statehood. The U.S. has outlined a path to a broader post-war settlement in which Saudi Arabia would recognize Israel and join other Arab states, and a revitalized PA in helping to rebuild and govern Gaza, all in exchange for a credible path to an independent Palestine state. The reform of the PA represents a small part of that package, which has yet to win over the Israeli government and possibly a step closer to the end of the war. Do tell us what you think about this video in the comment section, and for more news updates, subscribe to India Today.